How's it going, guys? Today I want to talk about my very first rental property and its evolution over the first 5 years that I've owned it. I bought it in 2018 in November, and currently it's August of 2024. So it's been almost 6 years since I've owned this piece of real estate, which is a duplex. It's a duplex that I house hack. I'll get to that in just a minute. But the reason that I want to focus on the life path of my very first rental is because I've noticed a trend out there as I watch real estate influencers and podcasters and entertainers talk and interview other individuals in the space. The trend that I'm noticing is I see a lot of videos that say how to get to 100 units in just 3 years, or how to get $10,000 in passive income from only 8 rentals in 12 months. I see all of these over-sensationalized promises that seem to suggest that you should be able to build this massive real estate portfolio that will allow you to retire and live off of your passive income super quickly. You should just be able to call your boss and say, I'm out within 12 months. And if you don't, it must be something wrong with you.
I can't lie.
Buying properties like this, and this helped me quit my job 15 months after buying my first rental.
You know, real estate investors that want to go full-time and quit their day job, this is for you. So Cameron Cathcart and I made a free 4-part real estate investing training to show you how to do 100 deals per year.
They call you Mr. 74. Well, I joined the Sub2 community 12 months ago, and since then, I've done 74 deals. You've bought 74 houses? Yes.
I'm gonna show you how to buy real estate with either no money down or 5% down.
What if I told you that you could be receiving monthly rent payments in just 90 days? This isn't fantasy, it's actually a proven strategy.
Well, I disagree completely. I think that you don't get told the truth about what a real rental portfolio looks like over time enough. I don't think that most of these influencers, the Pace Morbys, the Grant Cardones, the Chris Crones, the biggerpockets, a lot of these guys fail to give you the details. They don't look at an actual deal and show you how it worked over time. Explain the real numbers, the purchase price, the interest rate, the monthly rent, the monthly mortgage, and how that changes over the life of owning that property. I think that a lot of the times they'll use, let's use these numbers because it's good for quick math. And I understand the I need good for quick math argument when you make videos. You have to be able to keep the audience's attention. But I think it is a huge disservice to you because you never get realistic expectations. Instead, you just get the best example, the imaginary example, and then you compare yourself to that. Or you watch these podcasters and these entertainers bring on the 1 in a million investor guests and then say, this must be the norm because they keep making videos about how to retire at 23 years old with 500 rentals. I'm not about it. I'm really tired of elevating and promoting these influencers who own 500 rentals. And when they say own, they mean they have multiple equity partners. They are a minority ownership in the real estate. They may be the owner who has control over it. They call the shots, but they realistically own a couple percent of it, and the majority of the money is getting paid out to their lenders who are their long-term equity partners, but it's a cooler YouTube thumbnail that will make you click on it, and a better title if they say, I own 500 rental units, and I did it in 3 years. Yeah, okay, but I think it's just fake news. So what I'm going to do today with you guys is talk to you about my very first rental property. And the fact that even though I've owned this property for the last 5+ years, and I'm going to share with you how crazy the numbers have gotten over that time, I also want to make it realistic for you. So you have realistic expectations about how owning property can actually affect your life and what to really look for on the horizon if you're just getting started today in 2024. So why don't we jump right in? So in 2018, I purchased my first house hack, this duplex right here, just outside of Seattle. Now this did not cash flow day one, but I knew that I was going to be able to lower my living expenses by having a tenant in one side and a roommate to be able to assist me with paying the monthly mortgage. Now this would also get me on the property ladder and give me the opportunity to benefit from long-term appreciation. Lastly, this would get rental income on my tax returns, which is very important for the lenders when it comes to qualifying for additional loans for future rental properties. Now the purchase price for this thing in 2018 was $450,000. I had a 5% down payment of $32,000 and an interest rate of 5.25%. The monthly mortgage payment was $2,725, and at that time the rent on this property was $1,600 for one side, and I had a roommate paying $550 for a total of $2,150 in monthly income. Now, this meant that I only had to pay $575 a month to live, which was a major improvement from where I had previously been renting and paying $2,000 a month. Moving on to 2019, my monthly payment remained the same at $27.25. My first tenant got married and ended up moving out, and I increased rents from $1,600 to $1,950 for the next tenant who moved in, while still collecting the $550 from my roommate for a total of $2,500 a month in monthly rental income and that mortgage payment of $27.25. Fast forwarding to 2020, I refinanced as interest rates were plummeting and recast my loan starting the 30 years over, but with a new interest rate of 3.25% fixed for 30 years. My new monthly payment was $2,400. Rent was still at $1,950 with a $550 from a roommate totaling $2,500. Now, this was the first time that my monthly income from rents covered the mortgage payment, and I was now effectively living for free. Now, in 2021, there weren't any significant changes. I was getting started investing out of state. I didn't do anything here. I was just on cruise control. Entering 2022, however, my tenant of the last 2 years moves out, and I increased rents from $1,950 to $2,150 for just one side. But my roommate also moved out, and I did not replace my roommate. This brought back a gap in my mortgage payment from where the rent was to where the mortgage payment was of $275. But it was worth it to be able to live alone and just have a place for me and my son. Now, also in 2022, I got an appraisal for the property for the purposes of obtaining a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. Now, the property was valued at $700,000, which was up from the $450,000 that I had purchased it for just a few years prior. So that $250,000 in appreciation allowed the bank to give me a HELOC. They gave me $125,000 or 50% of what the equity was. So I began utilizing that HELOC to conduct multiple BRRRR strategies in my out-of-state investing portfolio. Now, I would pull all of the money out, buy, remodel, rent it out, refinance, and repeat over and over again. And currently, I'm still using that HELOC to conduct the strategy over and over again. Now, in 2023, my long-term tenant moved out, and I decided to attempt my first Airbnb, a short-term rental. So for the first 6 months, I slowly ramped up from a monthly low of $2,800 a month to between $3,000 and $3,300 a month in rent. Taxes and insurance also increased, and my monthly mortgage payment went from $2,400 to $2,525. Now, I'm covering all of my living expenses with the rent, but I'm working way harder with a short-term rental than I was with a long-term rental. I was no longer Millennial Mike because I had become Millennial Made. Now, as we look at present day in 2024, in January of this year, an insurance company reached out to me and requested to lease the unit next door for 6 months at the long-term rental rate. Now, after some strong negotiating, I was able to get them to agree to a premium rate of $3,700 a month. Now, much to my surprise, they actually ended up signing a 12-month lease with me that I'm currently halfway through. So that puts the current numbers for this property at a mortgage payment of $2,525 and the unit rented for $3,700 monthly with no roommate. But I am taking applications for a future wife, so if you feel so inclined, feel free to contact me on Instagram at Millennial Mike. I'll also field your real estate related questions over there too, as well. Now, the last time the property was appraised was in 2022, and it appraised for $700,000. However, since then, multiple duplexes in the area have sold for as much as $800,000. So, being generous, I would say on the low end, I've had $250,000 of appreciation, and on the high end, possibly $350,000 of appreciation. And my rental appreciation has gone up over 100%. It's no secret that real estate is very powerful. It's a very powerful way to build a strong financial future for yourself. But realistically, I think that the most powerful component of it is time. If you were to say, Mike, I've got $1 million, I want to invest in real estate today and be able to retire tomorrow or 3 months from now, I would say, well, maybe it's possible. It might be possible if you had enough money just sitting there that we just buy a ton of properties. But in reality, the biggest and the most underrated component of investing in your real estate is that math of time, as my friend Dion from the channel Dion Talk loves to say all the time. The math of time. When you spend more time in the market, you get the benefit of appreciation. You get the benefit of having more opportunities to look for an opportunity to refinance your loan, get a lower payment. You have the opportunity for when the market's healthier to go out there and look for a home equity line of credit. You have the opportunity to benefit from rental appreciation on top of just the assets appreciation. All of these things are out there with the ability to happen, but you just have to spend enough time as an investor to actually allow them to naturally occur to the point where you can then take advantage of them. Now, what I want you to also pay attention to is even though my rent has just skyrocketed, it is uncharacteristic of a long-term rental to go up in rent or even appreciate that much. I have benefited from record levels of inflation. I don't want that to happen again. I don't think that's healthy for the market. I don't think it's healthy for rents. I don't think it's healthy for future tenants. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I refuse to accept the new value on my house and argue with the appraiser, or I refuse to rent it at the fair market value rate. I'm not going to do that. But I do sincerely hope that we get closer to a healthy level of appreciation and we return to healthy levels of inflation, because I think that's going to be better for you and for obviously for the tenants out there. Even with these catastrophically crazy numbers of appreciation thanks to the inflation, I'm still working a full-time job. This is one duplex that I own. For the record, I have a 5-plex, a 4-plex, 2 3-plexes, 4 duplexes, and 6 single-family homes. I think I got them all, totaling 27 units. I am 100% the owner on 19 of the 27 units. I have a partner on a few and partners on 1 5-plex. But even with all of these units, lots of them I've owned for several years now, and I can do further videos like this one explaining the appreciation over time, I still work full-time. I still work tons of overtime. And what I fear for you guys, the audience out there, is that when you watch BiggerPockets, or when you watch Chris Crone, or Grant Cardone, or Pace Morby, or any of these large podcasters, I worry that you guys will judge yourselves as not being good investors because you're comparing yourselves to the wrong people. One of the biggest qualms that I have with all of these influencer real estate guys is that they've forgotten what it's like to be you. Shoot, they've forgotten what it's like to be me. They don't remember what it was like day one, year one, because they've been doing it for 2 decades. And they've been talking to other people in an echo chamber who've also been doing it for 2, 3, 4, 5 decades. Dave Ramsey, Ken McElroy, guys that have been doing real estate since before my parents were born. They don't know how to relate to you because it's been 20, 30, 40 years. I remember what it was like on day one, because day one for me was not even 6 years ago. But even I'm going to fall subject to the same problem. It's going to be harder and harder for me to relate to somebody getting started today, because the time that I started was so much further in the past. So I think it's important to have realistic expectations. I think it's important to meter and manage your expectations, because if you don't, if you think that these hyped up, over-sensationalized stories that you see on YouTube or Instagram are the norm, you're going to think something's wrong with yourself. Well, why don't I have 100 units? Well, why don't I have $10,000 in passive income? Well, why am I still plugging away at it 3, 4, 5 years later? But I want you to remember, that's actually extremely impressive. The percentage of people that will ever own a rental property is microscopic. The amount of people who will ever think to invest like this is tiny. Getting one single rental property is amazing. Think about the numbers on this house, this duplex, 30 years from now, or 25 years from now. It's completely paid off. What happens to rent in the next 25 years? How much worse does inflation destroy the dollar? Are rents $7,000 aside, $8,000 aside, and I now have no payment? I just pay insurance and taxes and I collect $15K a month in straight profit? That's going to blow most people's Social Security out of the water, most people's retirements, 401ks, pensions, if they have them, completely out of the water with just one rental property. So before you get mad at yourself when you're looking in the mirror and say, man, I can't figure out how to get to 100 units or 200 units or $10,000 or whatever your goal is, before you get mad at yourself, remember that instead of thinking, how do I get to 100, just think about how you get one rental property. Or if you already got one, just think about how you get the next one rental property. And remember that with the benefit of time, things are going to work out in your favor, and you're probably doing a whole hell of a lot better than you give yourself credit for. In the comments down below, I would love to know if you have a first rental property and it's been 6 months, or it's been 60 months, or it's been 16 years. Let me know what the purchase price was and what the current value is, and what the rent was and what the current rent is. I would love to know when you bought it and how it's evolved over the lifetime that you've owned the property. So if you don't mind leaving a comment down below, I love it. As always, guys, I do appreciate you guys for being here, subscribing and liking to the channel. I know there's a lot of competition out there. You could watch a lot of other people. So I appreciate you as always for being here. And until next time, catch you later.